Hey guys, welcome to a new video. In this one, I'm gonna show you how to give a film look to your photos. I'm gonna be showing you this in Lightroom Classic, so the desktop version of Lightroom, because that's what I use. But keep in mind that all of these can be applicable to the Lightroom mobile app. So if you really are into film photography, the best way to do so would be to buy a film camera and, films and just develop your films. I personally do not own a film camera, but I've tried it and I think it's pretty cool. It really brings you back to really the essence of photography. You can't really double check what you've just shot, and you have limited shots available and all, So it really brings you back to all this the technicity and the artistry of the craft, right? But well, like everything else, especially nowadays with this inflation and all, it's still a budget. Buying the camera itself, buying all the films, and then paying someone to develop all of these films, it can add up pretty quickly, so it's still some sort of budget to consider, right? So I guess I'm just giving you a cheat here. Anyway, if you like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And for those of you who are new here and do not know me, hey, I'm Jordan and my channel is all about photography and videography. I invite you to go check out all the other tutorials and videos that are on my channel. And if that's your thing, or if you just want to help a brother out, please consider subscribing. All right, let's not waste any more time and get to it. Now we are in Lightroom Classic. So this is where I'm going to show you the 3 steps I use to give a film look to my photos. All right, so I have different photos right here. So I have some landscape, some architecture, some street photography, some lifestyle-ish, some details and portraits as well. So we're going to try this look on all of these kind of photography. We're going to start with this photo, which is kind of more lifestyle, one person staring at the horizon. I have already edited the photo, done a basic edit. And now we're going to move on to the first step. So, when you see film photography, when you use a film camera, an old camera, old school, from I don't know, the 60s, the 80s or whatever. In my opinion, it looks like there is some sort of some sort of voile. Like when you develop a photo, when you look at it, it seems like there is some sort of layer in between your eye and the photo, or just on top of the photo that gives it this really specific old school vibe. And so to create this sort of voile to achieve this specific look, the first step we're going to do is we're going to try to kind of fade out the photo. To do so, what I like to use is here the tone curve. So I'm just going to open the tone curve tab right here. So as you can see, is linear right now, so I haven't touched it, so it's just the standard by default that you're going to have. And so in order to fade out the photo, what we're going to do is we're going to want to play with our whites and our blacks. So the way it works is the first line right here is our blacks, this line is the shadows, this line the mid-tones, and this line is the highlights. And finally, the last one right here is our whites. As I've already edited the photo, I've already modified my mid-tones and shadows and all. So I'm just going to put those 3 dots that I don't want to touch. So now to fade out our photo, we're going to want to play with those 2 parts at the extremes, right? I'm just going to bring up my blacks as so. And we're going to do the same thing with our whites, right? Like that. And as you can see, if I turn it on and off already, this looks already a bit more faded, right? Now we're going to move on to the basic tab, and you can also do the same thing right here with your whites and your blacks. You have the sliders right there. So I might want to maybe adjust that a little bit as well. I don't know, maybe bring down my whites a little, my blacks as well. And you can see right here that you have the contrast slider too. So if you want to fade it out, we might want to reduce the contrast right here too. So now we're done with the first step. Our image is way more faded, right? Moving on to the second step, as you can most of the time see on old photos, they always have this sort of grain and texture to it, right? So to replicate that, what we're gonna want to do is go to our effects tab right here. And right here you can see that you have the grain settings, right? Here you can add some grain. So if we just bring it up a little, all right, so I've put it around let's put it around 50 to see first, you can always modify to your likings, right? And then you have the size of the grain you want to add. If you really want to show grain and really want to add that, you can just always increase that. That looks really, I think to me it's a little too much right there. So I might want to just bring that down a little, and you have the roughness as well. So I invite you to play around with those 3 settings. So if I just turn off the grain and turn it on, you can see that it really gives like some sort of like, you know, film vibe to the photo, right? And finally, moving on to the last step, technically, if you use like a film camera, that will also depend on the camera you use, right? What I've personally noticed, the saturation in the photos are either really saturated or they are mostly desaturated. Personally, I'm not a really big fan of like oversaturated photos, so I'm gonna go back to basic right here. And as you can see right here, so this is like the base editing that I have. I usually always bring down the saturation in my photos and increase the vibrance. I think it looks way better. I think in that specific case, it looks all right, but you know, whether you like saturation or not, you can always like increase like the vibrance or, you know, like play around with like the saturation and all. For this specific one, I might want to play a little bit with the vibrance. I don't know, I want to have kind of like a really faded, like really almost like desaturated kind of look. All right, so personally, I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. You know, you can see that there's a bunch of grain if you zoom in. All right, so now that I have those 3 different steps done, what I might want to do is just create a preset. Right? Why not? Like, and especially if you followed along, you can do the same thing. So just to create that preset to give that kind of film look. So I'm just gonna go there, create a preset. I don't know, I'm gonna name that one like film look. So I'm just gonna check none. And so now we're just gonna check all the settings that we've just modified in those 3 steps, right? So we've played with the vibrance and well, we can add like the vibrance and saturation, the whites and the blacks, the tone curve, obviously, and then the effect. So we just did the grain in the effect as so, right? So I personally don't really use presets, but now you can see that we have the film look right here. So let's say this landscape, this mountain shot right here. Let's say we just apply the film look to it. But in that case, I think it looks like a little like too much, like especially with the grain, in my opinion. So like you can just go back and then adjust, you know, like all the settings like one by one, you know. So now I'm just going to quickly apply this film look preset we've just created to all those different type of photography. And I'm obviously going to show you a before and after on the screen. Alright, so that was pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And hopefully you're gonna make some use of what you've learned here, if you did learn anything, you know. If you're using this technique on your photography and are on Instagram, I'd really love to see like what you guys have come up with, right? So please feel free to tag me in there or in your stories or whatever, so I can just come check it out. My Instagram is gonna be in the description below. Otherwise, you have a good one and we'll see each other in the next video.